Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I am bringing you week 30 of my 2019 reads. This is a little bit late, just a couple days later than I meant to post, but I was happy because I did finish 2 books this week. The first book that I finished this week was a romance novel called War by Laura Thalassa, and this is the second in the 4 Horsemen series, which is a paranormal sort of post-apocalyptic romance series. I tend to read romance novels when I am having busy, stressful times, and this week was definitely pretty stressful, so I relaxed by reading a romance novel. This one was kind of an interesting choice in that it wasn't really that relaxing of a romance novel. Normally I like romance novels because they are kind of nice emotions. This one was very heavy on the post-apocalyptic part, so there was a lot of death. This series is about the apocalypse, and the 4 horsemen come one at a time to Earth, and they create a lot of death and havoc, and it's kind of graphic actually in this book. The whole storyline is that then they meet women who change their hearts, and then they decide not to kill all the humans, but there's a lot of death that happens before they get to that point. So I had read the previous book, the first one in the series called Pestilence, a year or 2 ago, and I found the writing funny and interesting, and I liked kind of the premise of the series as well. So when I saw that this was out, I thought, okay, I'll pick it up. And it was sort of similar, where I have these mixed feelings. I didn't like the intense graphic violence or the kind of crudeness of a lot of the language. I mean, there's a lot of swearing and things that happens in this series, and also there's a lot of Stockholm syndrome. That's kind of like the premise of the first book, Pestilence, and the second book, War. So maybe not the healthiest of romance relationships, but it is very, very, very funny. The writing style is very humorous. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of interesting world building. So there's some good things to offer it. Overall, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I don't recommend this if you are new to romance novels, but if you are a big paranormal romance fan, you might like it. The other book that I finished this week was Revenant Gun by Yoon Ha Lee, which is the 3rd book in the Machineries of Empire series, and was one of the books that I was reading for the Hugo novel Finalists. So I have talked about it quite at length with my husband Sush in our discussion of the Hugo novel Finalists. I'll link that video below if you want to see more detail, but just as a brief summary, this really interestingly and with a lot of impact and power concludes the trilogy of the Machineries of Empire. And I think that, it has a lot of that epicness of scale, of battles, of, what happens. I don't want to talk about the plot very much because it really is just a continuation of the story. But the themes in this and some of the perspectives we see I thought were pretty interesting. So for example, one of the narrators, one of the perspectives we see is Hemiola, which is a servitor. And the servitors are robots in this world. And I'm finding that I really like books that address AI personhood and explore the ways in which different AIs could be people and how that might be expressed and what they might care about. So I thought that that insight into the servitor world was really interesting, and I just liked Hemiola as a character. It was super earnest and sweet and cute. I thought also that the themes that were explored in terms of interpersonal relationships and mental health were very, very powerful. Just like in the previous ones, there's big themes of community and belonging and loyalty and obedience and power structures. But this book also added in a lot of focus on mental health and on the kind of relationships we have with the people we care about. There was a lot about especially people who have been abused and, things that perpetuate that abuse, how you handle it, the kind of internalization of that abuse, and a lot of just issues of depression and isolation and some really quite heavy topics. But I thought that it added, again, some layers of depth to this story. So it's not just a military, sci-fi. It's really got a lot of depth to what issues it explores, especially in terms of kind of sexual abuse and things like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting, a bit heavy, but pretty interesting. And overall, I think that was the book. It was Very powerful, very impactful, a lot to take in though. So at times it could feel a little bit overwhelming, both in terms of the heaviness of the topics, as well as just all of the things that were happening. I mean, it's this big, battle. There's a lot going on. Overall, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, but again, make sure that you're in the right headspace if you want to go into this series. So that wraps up week 30 for me. If you guys have read either of these books, go ahead and let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. Or if you've read anything really interesting in the past couple of weeks, let me know. Hopefully I'll be able to get some more reading in the next couple of months. So I'm definitely keeping my eye out for anything that attracts my notice. And if you voted in the Hugos, let me know what categories you voted in. I'm very curious as to, what categories people prioritize when choosing what to read.